For the infiltration process, we are going to need containers, our tissue forceps, our tissue specimen enclosed in a tissue cassette, and lastly, our candles, which will act as our paraffin wax. So now, we are going to melt our wax equally, dividing it in 3 containers. Note that the other containers were not shown as the wax can harden if kept at room temperature. After the wax has been fully melted, we are going to place our cassette in our first paraffin wax bath for 30 minutes. In order to maintain the temperature of the wax, we have to place it in a microwave that has controlled temperature of 55 to 60 Celsius to best infiltrate the specimen. Fish out the specimen and get ready for the next paraffin wax bath. For the third paraffin wax bath, we are going to immerse the sample for 45 minutes. After the procedure is done, the tissue specimen is now ready for embedding.
For this step, the materials we will be using are candle, container for the melted candle, gloves, spoon, and paper boat. Prepare a melted candle by heating and maintain it melted. Place the paper boat in the table properly orient the specimen in the mold and cool it long enough to anchor it in place. Completely fill the melted candle into the remaining portion of the paper boat as needed. Cool it for an immediate and rapid solidification. Once the block is sufficiently solidified, remove the block from the paper boat and clean the block of its excess wax. Now, we can see the final product of embedding.
Now, I will be performing the floating out and fishing out of tissue section. Before we begin the procedure, we need to coat our glass slide with an egg white. As a substitute for the Kim wipe, I will be using a cotton cloth to smear the egg white all over the 3/4 portion of the glass slide, while the remaining 1/4 will be preserved for the label. I will then be proceeding to the modified flotation bath filled with water with 40 to 60 degrees Celsius temperature. For the tissue sections, I will be using the outer layer of the white portion of the spring onion. These sections are then floated out in our flotation bath in order to smoothen and straighten the wrinkles that may be present. After a few seconds, it is now time to fish out a tissue section using our coated glass slide. With the assistance of my modified brush, which in this case is a fork, I will be carrying out the procedure. And voila, this is now the output to be subjected to the staining process.
The first step is to put the slide to silane 1 for the paraffinization for 2 minutes. After putting our slide in silane 1, we are now going to put the slide in silane 2 for another 2 minutes. After putting our slide in silane 2, we are now going to put the slide in silane 3 for the paraffinization for 2 minutes. The paraffinization is the process that refers to removal of wax. Since silane is highly miscible with paraffin and also can make the tissue transparent so that the paraffin can fully envelope the tissue. After putting our slide in silane 3, we are now going to put our slide in a 100% ethanol for 2 minutes. And just repeat the process, we are now going to put our slide again to a 100% ethanol for another 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, we are now going to put our slide in a 95% ethanol for another 1 minute. After the 1 minute, we are now going to put our slide in a 95% ethanol for another 1 minute. After putting it in a 95% ethanol, we are now going to put it in a 80% ethanol for 1 minute. After the 80% ethanol, we are going to put into a tap water for about 3 minutes. After which is that we are going to put the slide into the Harris hematoxylin for nucleus staining for 3 minutes. The staining tends to provide clear detail. After putting it in a Harris hematoxylin, we are now going to put it in a tap water for 3 minutes. After which, we are now going to put it in a decolorizer, which is a 0.3% acid alcohol for differentiation for about 10 seconds. After differentiation, we are now going to wash the slide in a tap water for 3 minutes.
James will now demonstrate the second part of staining, wherein he will put the slide in lithium carbonate for bluing for about 1 minute. Bluing is the step that converts the initial soluble red color of hematoxylin within the nucleus to an insoluble blue color. After putting the slide to the bluing reagent, he will now transfer the slide in 95% ethanol for about 3 minutes. After which, he will get the slide from the 95% ethanol and put it into the eosin alcoholic for about 3 minutes. After putting the sample in the eosin, he will now transfer the slide in a 95% ethanol for about 1 minute. Take note that James will be repeating this step for 2 more times. Therefore, the transferring of 95% ethanol from eosin alcoholic will be 3 times for 1 minute each. After the whole process of transferring 95% ethanol, he will now transfer the slide into 100% ethanol for about 1 minute, repeating the whole process, wherein after this, he will now transfer the slide into another 100% ethanol for another 1 minute. Take note that in this step is where the ascending grades of alcohol is used to dehydrate the tissues. Dehydration is the process that refers to the removal of water, since alcohol can penetrate the tissue quickly and the water can be easily replaced. Silene 1 for clearing will now be used after 1 minute, wherein he will now transfer the slide into our first silene solution for about 1 minute. Silene 2 will now be utilized after this step, wherein he will now transfer the slide into another silene solution for about 1 minute. Silene 3 for clearing will now be used, wherein he will now transfer the slide into our third silene solution for another 1 minute. Hi, this is Julia and I will perform mounting. Before we begin, make sure to have the proper PPE. Materials used will be slide with specimen, cover slip, mountant, and paper towel. To officially begin with the mounting method, place the mountant on top of the specimen. After which, get the cover slip and slowly place it on top of the specimen with the mountant. Please make sure that there will be no bubbles seen in this process. Now, to explain what mounting process is all about, it is a process where a mounting medium is applied between the section and the cover slip, setting the section firmly and preventing the movement of the cover slip. After which, you can also have the option to use a nail polish to secure the cover slip onto the slide. In this area, you can see an excess amount of mountant onto the slide. Therefore, the usage of paper towel is very much needed in this step.